What is up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. And over the past week, the Cyberpunk TCG starter decks have been revealed, Cyberpunk TCG beta events have gone live, and 14 new cards have been revealed. And I'll be going over all that and more in today's video. But as per usual, we'll be starting out with... Starting off, we'll be taking a look at the one-stop shop. That is the Kickstarter update that just came out this last Friday, number 60. And this pretty much just gives you a lowdown on like the last week's news without going into too much detail on it. The first big thing was that they announced that they've chosen Melee as their official tournament software partner. From what I've heard about it, it is one of the better options that they could have gone with. Although, admittedly, I'm not insanely familiar with it, if not really that much at all, if I'm being completely honest. So some other tombs would probably be the better source to get your information on that about, if I'm being completely honest. There are also beta events. Your local beta events have started going up on Melee to sign up for at your LGS. Some of them have already filled up. Even ones close to me that have like 32 spots are already at 23 or something like that. So if you haven't checked, please do that soon if you intend to try and get in on a beta event, because they are seemingly filling up kind of fast. And then just with this Friday's update as well, they revealed both of the Welcome to Night City starter decks in its entirety, Embracing Power and the Heist. And then there was also episode number 22 of the Cyberdeck podcast. That is the official one by Cyberpunk TCG. In that one, Kawa unboxed both of the starter decks. So you got to see the cards in person, in quotation marks, as in through a screen, but also in person, which you could actually see the foiling kind of well on some of them, which was really cool. You could see the dice, the playmats, just that kind of general stuff. Then they also went over some of the recent card reveals in that one, which you should probably listen to them before you listen to me on anything like that, if I'm being honest. And then they also gave a little bit of hints about what to look forward to in the future. Also, I'd say one of the more notable pieces of information that came out of it was that they estimate that the card reveals are going to be finished in like a week and a half, which is kind of crazy because, I mean, just being here from the start pretty much and barely, not even having a full like page of cards on their card database, and now we're just a week and a half away from them all being revealed is, I don't know, it's just cool to see it come to fruition. And then they got the card reveal spotlight for Adrenaline Converter, which I went over in my last video. And they also released a gameplay video of Kawa and Steve, Weird team members, playing with the starter decks. It is about 36 minutes, 37, just a game, but it is a very intricate game, pretty detailed, and just really cool to watch. So if you have some free time and you're looking for something like that, would highly recommend it. It was a pretty cool video. But if you don't want to watch the gameplay video and you really just want like the new cards or the deck lists for the starter decks, then there is a blog that came out this Friday just for you. It is titled Welcome to Night City Starter Decks Full Deck List Revealed. It's only 3 minutes, even less if you're just skimming it for like the new cards. And it's pretty simple. Just goes over the starter decks one by one, starting off with the Embracing Power starter deck. Goes over, or just lists the 3 legends, has the 40 cards in the main deck, as well as how many are being played in it. A little bit of a tidbit as to the deck's general game plan and that kind of stuff below that as well. Lists 3 spotlight cards and then does the same for the Heist starter deck. One thing I will say though about the main deck list of cards is that there doesn't really seem to be any particular order that they're in. Like it doesn't go units to gears to legends. It's not alphabetical. I don't know. Maybe there's some order that I just didn't really take notice of before hitting record, but it is currently lost on me if that's the case. But if you want that information kind of packed into one slide and condensed, then I put that together just for you. Starting out with the Heist deck, you can see the 3 legends at the top, and then goes by units, gears, and then programs all by cost. So the lower cost ones start at the front, and then it has a rising cost as it moves right and then down a row, and so on and so forth. I didn't really take RAM into consideration, so it's really just grouped together by the cost. And then the new cards for the Heist deck are the Haywood Ripperdoc and the Tetratronic Rippler. Only 2 for this one. The Embracing Power deck has double the amount of new cards, or double +1 if you count Ruthless Lowlife being re-revealed with it. But spotlight cards for the Heist deck, as you can see, are the Malfini, the Flathead, and the Faceplate. And then some stats about the deck is it has 20 units that have an average cost of 3.7, and that cost is pretty concentrated because more than half of the unit cards in this deck are going to cost 4, and even more so are 3. So it's pretty packed in there with a general value around 4. And then as for gear, there are only 13 cards with an average cost of 1.38, the highest costed gear card being 2. So on average, your gear are going to be pretty cheap to play. And then as for programs, there are 7 of them in this deck with an average cost of 1.29, with it being 1, 1, and then 2 for the After Party at Lizzie's Floor It, and then Reboot Optics. And then as a whole, the deck on average has a cost of 2.53 for the cards to be played. And then as for the Embracing Power deck, as I mentioned, there are double the amount of new cards in this deck, being the Max Sack AV, Chrome Fang, Shattered Memories, and the RSOC Emergency Radio Port. And then the Ruthless Lowlife got re-released or re-revealed with its new version here as well. So definitely a lot more to look into with this deck if you're just going for like new card reveals and stuff like that. The spotlight cards for this deck, they have listed as the Minotaur, Mantis Blades, and the Sandevistan. And some stats for this deck is that it also has 20 units with an average cost of 3.6. I will say, though, for this one, that it is kind of top heavy, and there seems to be a bit more width between like you drawing the average card and then drawing like a Minotaur, which is 7, because 12 of the units in this deck cost 3 or less, and then 14 cost 4 or less. So it's pretty top heavy with the Max Deck AV, Chrome Fang, and the Minotaur kind of booting that value or the average cost to play a unit up in that case. And then this deck has 2 less gear than the Heist with an average cost of 2.0. And then 9 programs for this deck, which honestly surprised me a little bit that it was more than the Heist deck, just because that deck has more with writing eddies on your at the end of your turn, and then maybe having like some more quick hacks to do stuff with that. And then the programs for the Embracing Power deck have an average cost of 2.44, and the deck as a whole has an average cost of 2.9. But also as a whole, I'd say this deck is just in general more top heavy and like wider in the range of costed cards that you're going to be drawing. Because with the programs, it's got some beefy ones like Shattered Memories that cost 4, and then the aforementioned Minotaur, which is 7, and just other kind of higher than normal average value cards that are drawing that up from where it otherwise would be. But what's the point of having decks, whether it's the starter decks or a constructed deck, if you're not able to play with them? And for that, there are Cyberpunk TCG beta events and pre-releases coming up. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to play your starter decks or any constructed decks in the beta or pre-release events, but you are able to play the Cyberpunk TCG. And this article, it's only 6 minutes, has basically the lowdown about that, goes over what the difference between Cyberpunk TCG beta events and retail pre-release events are, also explains what the sealed deck format is, as well as going over rules for that, like how do you build your sealed deck. Pretty much how it works is you'll get a legend pack where you'll get 3 legends out of a legend pool, and then you just can play those, or you can sub in any legend cards that you open from your booster packs into that as well. But you're only allowed to play 3 legends, so you'll just pick from the pool available to you that to play. And then as for your main deck, it has to be a minimum of 30 cards, not including your 3 legends. So in total, you should have at least 33 cards. Now, there is the RAM restrictions in typical constructed play, but for beta and pre-release events, that does not matter. Basically, how it works is you just choose 3 colors that you want to play. Doesn't matter if you have a 5 yellow RAM, Atom Smash, or Metal Over Meat. And then you also pull the secret rare Judy, which has 5 blue RAM. As long as you choose yellow and blue as 2 free colors, you can just put them in the same deck, as well as just any RAM combination in those colors. All you got to do, 3 colors, 30 cards, just throw them in a deck together. And typically, as advised by Cyberpunk TCG and Weirdco, you'll want to have 16 sellable cards and then 14 playable, or maybe like a 15-15. Yeah. But there's more to it than that. You want that deck to win, right? You don't want to go 0-3 at your event. And for that, they have some tips for you in what makes a winning sealed deck. Their first tip is to prioritize stats over strategy. So pretty much you're just going to want to play the big beefy cards that you pull. You don't want to try to get too much into the semantics of like a brain dance synergy deck if you pull like a Judy and a an alt Cunningham Legend. Pretty much just want to focus on the power and what's in front of you on your card pool. Their second tip is to make sure that you play enough sellables. Generally, they will recommend a 50-50 split, but also it tends to settle around a 55-45 split for most successful players, they note. So on average, you should want 14 units and 16 sellable program or gear cards, or just the 15-15 split. And then also if you pull the flathead, that can also eat into your sellable amount that you should have there, because that is a unit that is also sellable. And then their third tip is to let your pulls guide which color you play. Obviously, you should want to play, I'd say, 2 colors that have a good amount, and then maybe just one that has like a strong card or just some strong cards. Because, I mean, 3 colors, you should have access to at least one that has a good amount of bulk in it that's decent to play. Um, they note here that you should spend some time reviewing your pulls, consider which color looks the weakest overall, and then play all the others. But also because eddies don't have to be like colored to spend it for a certain amount, like it is in Magic the Gathering, with your lands having to be a certain color to produce a certain mana. Any sellable card or just card that is sold can be used to add up to that cost. So maybe you play like yellow and red because those are generally like your strongest colors. And then while blue is overall your weakest color, maybe there's like a couple bombs in there that you want to play. So you pretty much just splash blue in, and it pretty much makes no difference. So yeah, just typically you're going to want to play like, I'd recommend at least 2 generally strong colors, and then maybe splash in a third or such. What do I do once my deck is built? So it just gives you a little bit of a rundown there. And then what you need to bring with you on the day is pretty much nothing, like a playmat if you want to, because at least with that, you'll get the cards, you will get the dice. But yeah, maybe you want something like cosmetic, like a certain playmat that you really like. Some sleeves are also pretty recommended as well, both to protect your deck and then to make shuffling pretty much easier as well. Or maybe there's just like a dice set that you really like and you want to bring. You can do that 100%. Also recommend a charger as well as a phone, pretty typically, in case it's running low on juice. And then also just if you need to look something up, or like you need to keep track of something, just something like that. I mean, you probably will already, but I mean, it's generally going to be on the better side to do so rather than to not. And then, as mentioned before, they've announced Melee.gg as their tournament software partner, which they also put up a 2-minute blog on. It's pretty short, pretty simple. They gave a little bit of reasoning as to why they chose Melee.gg as their tournament software partner. And then they also announced that event scheduling and player account linking are now live. So you'll be able to connect your cyberpunktcg.com account to your Melee.gg account, which you have to sign up for some Cyberpunk TCG events on Melee. So definitely would recommend getting on that as soon as possible, because as I also mentioned before, some events near me at least are already filling up. And I mean, if you intend to go on one or to go to a beta event, it would probably be better to ensure that you are going to get a spot at one sooner rather than later and chancing it. And if you need a little bit of help with that, under the resources tab, there is the Melee and player account frequently asked questions tab. It is more, or at least from what I can tell, it's more geared towards retailers, with the starting one even being like, how do I create a beta event? And then like, how do I register an organization with my Melee.gg account? But there are some general questions that are answered here. And if you have a question about, or just like an issue with whatever, I guess, here would be a good starting point for you to check at. And as you can see, it's pretty long. Yeah, it's got a player FAQs tab as well under there. So you just got to scroll down a fair amount, but there is some info there for you. Pretty helpful. And then, yeah, even just goes into a little bit about like what comes in a beta event kit, as you can see there. But there is also the event finder, and that'll bring you to melee.gg, where with the location, it might be off. You just click that. You can use your current location. You can search up your address, or you can just search up like the city that you're in. So for this example, we'll put Los Angeles, and then it'll have the closest store here at the top. And then if you scroll down a little bit, it'll have tournaments going from closest to farthest. And at least the monetary range, or like how much it's going to cost you to go, is pretty there's a big difference between some events. Like you can see this one is 45, then 30, 40, 50, 30, 40. But then you get down to like Orange Claw Club and it's $10. And then you get to Card Game Coliseum's event and it's free. So there's definitely a little bit of a range on how much the typical event's going to cost. And as you can see, some of them are already kind of filling up. I don't know if this one, yeah, this one's reached the cap of 16 players already. And then the one below it, the tilted one, has also reached the cap of 8 players. The 32 one below the Card Game Coliseum and the Orange Claw Club aren't filled in yet because I'm pretty sure if I remember off the top of my head, they both had a limit of 32 players, but it's only been like a couple days and they're already both at least 20 players. So maybe the more expensive events will have a lot more spots later on. But if you want like a cheaper one, then I would definitely get on this right now so you can save as much money as possible when going to one. Or I don't know, maybe that doesn't matter and you just want to support your local LGS. Then even then, it'd probably be better to like ensure that you get a spot in their event rather than it possibly being filled up. And then there is also the digital stream created now on the Cyberpunk TCG official YouTube channel. This is from last week's update, the digital beta celebration stream, live in 12 days at time of filming. For me, it is September 4th at 8:30 a.m., that specific time. It'll really start at 9 a.m. Pacific time. They just want to give like 30 minutes for everybody to wake up, I don't know, wash their face, get on break, get into the stream, stuff like that. And then this is also how you get the free Rebecca promo card. I assume there'll be like a pinned comment with a link to the forum or whatever, and then you put in the same email that you use for your backer kit, and then they'll add on the Rebecca foil card to your shipment, and you'll get that. But if you want a little bit more info about that, I have a video last week about that update, and then they also have like a blog about it, and then last week's official podcast episode touches on that as well. And then general Cyberpunk news is another trailer has been released for Cyberpunk Edgerunner Season 2, and the release date has been announced as October 20th, and I'm pretty sure it'll just be the whole season, but that is something pretty cool, pretty exciting, at least for me personally, because I really liked the first season, and I actually got to see the first episode at Anime Expo, and it is shaping up to be another great season. But with that, that is it for updates, and we will now be moving into kicking things off. We have Delamine Rideshare AI. This is a blue unit with a RAM requirement of 3 blue RAM, so you're going to need to be playing 2 blue legends to put this in your deck. It costs 3 to play and has 0 power. However, when you do play this card, you get to draw 2 cards, so you're going positive on that. And I think this unit is fine. Definitely going to have a home, specifically, at least in my thinking, in decks that also have Judy Alvarez as one of their legends, mainly because aside from gear, this is the only way in blue to give your unit a power buff. And if you're playing a Judy unit, you're probably going to want to be playing Praying Dances on literally every other turn that you can. And that plus 1 power can allow it to steal gigs. But just on its face, I'd say it's fine. The 3 for 2 isn't too bad comparative to all the other cards that are out there so far. And yeah. Next up, though, we got Zeta Tech Berserk. And I'm going to be honest, Chief, I really do not like this card at all. I mean, I literally thought that it was missing text, if I'm being honest. It is a green piece of gear that costs 6 to play, has a RAM requirement of only 2 green RAMs, so you're only going to need to be playing a green legend to put this in your deck, and it has plus 3 power. And its ability is a cost reduction. Play this gear for 1 eddy less for each friendly face-up legend to a minimum of 1 eddy, meaning that at its best on its face, it is going to cost 3 for a plus 3 power, which when you stack it up with a card like Mantis Blades, which only costs 1 and provides plus 2 power, it's not exactly the best. I mean, a part of its draw is that it does only have the 2 green RAM requirement. And then if you pair this with something like Pan Am specifically in green, then maybe you can run some shenanigans on that. But I just think there are better pieces of gear in literally every color for a 2 RAM requirement or less. Like with red, I like Mantis Blades and Satori better, absolutely. I mean, I probably prefer this card. This one I haven't really adjusted to because it's new and we'll go over later. In yellow, I like Mandibular Upgrade better. I like Zeta Tech Faceplate better for 2 RAM or less. In green itself, I like Riot Shield better than I do Zeta Tech Berserk. For blue, I like the literally every blue piece of gear better. I mean, even if you're playing this for like one, or there's a card that we'll be going over after this one that reduces cyberware cost by 3, the first one you play. But I mean, even if you take a look at the cyberware pieces of gear, there are just way more that I would prefer to use that cost reduction on. Like the relic only being 2 is pretty good. Netwatch Net Driver for 1, even like Sandevistan for 1, Gorilla Arms for 1. I mean, even Deadman Transmitter 1 for pretty much if your unit would be defeated, defeat that gear instead. I just, I don't know. If you like really need to round out your gear and get like as much as possible, I guess, but I would never run like 3 copies of this in my deck unless maybe, I don't know, I was doing something with Sasha and trying to like juice um the on its face cost for cards that I was putting in that deck. But even then, like I prefer red with like Octant or Carnage at the Coliseum to this. I just I don't know. It has a function, it has a place, but it's already on the fringes of that. And like the second we start getting even more gear in set 2, I do not see this staying around on like the tiniest of ledges that it's already on for me personally. Um, yeah. Moving on to a much better card, we have the aforementioned Victor Vector Drop Your Illusions. This is a yellow unit that costs 5 to play, has 5 power, and also requires 2 yellow lands to put it in your deck, so only a yellow legend. He has a tag of Ripperdoc, and his ability is that you get to play your first cyberware gear each turn for 3 eddies less to a minimum of 1 eddy. And if you take a look back at the gear tag, or tab, sorry, out of the 17 gear cards revealed so far, it currently oh, there it is. Okay. It currently affects 13 of them, which is a majority by a decent amount. And yeah, I mean, it takes Deadman Transmitter down to 1, Gorilla Arms down to 1. I mean, even just the 2 stuff going down to 1 is also helpful on your turn. You can play the Relic for 2, which is pretty dang good. Sandevistan for 1, Berserk for possibly 1, but even if you don't have any Legend Slip for 3, which is still bad as a 3 for 3. Netwatch Net Driver as well, only costing 1. And I mean, as more gear cards come out that have the cyberware tag too, this card is only going to get better. I don't think that it is really broad, and it is absolutely limited mainly to gear focused or like gear heavy decks, but this is pretty good in my opinion. Definitely want to keep your radar on. And I mean, if you're playing just like any certain amount of gear, this card practically becomes an auto include for that. So, a very nice change of tempo to a much better card there. Next up, we have our first legend of the video in Padre Man of the Cross. I got a feeling I'm going to need to repent with Padre for the hate I got for the Zeta Tech Berserk. But moving on off that, he is a green legend, cannot go solo, so it's only the one to flip him. And he has, like Wakako, 2 call effects where you can only choose one. The first one being that you get to spend a rival unit, and then the second one, or the second option, I guess, being to draw 1, and then you can spend him to set a player's gig to the same value as another player's gig, which I think overall is a pretty good legend. And I mean, this is going to be a continuing theme in the Fixer Legends being pretty solid and just overall pretty versatile. You're probably going to want to flip him on your turn because, I mean, there are some scenarios where, let's say your opponent attacks you with like the Delamain AI where they buffed its power up by 1, right? And then you can spend, I don't know, like a V corporate exile that they go soloed. But also it works pretty good on offense to spend down their blockers or just cards that you want to tack into, which is pretty nice. And then if none of those are really a scenario that fits the occasion, then you can just draw one. And I mean, spending an Eddie to draw a card is not bad at all. And then spending him to set a player's gig to the same value as another player's gig can be pretty dang good. Especially, or at least one thing I want to point out is that it's another player's gig. So let's say your opponent has like a 1 and then a 20 with like their D4 and their D20. You can't be swapping that. It has to be you setting one of their gigs to one of your gigs or one of your gigs to their gigs. I personally think, though, that he is specifically going to work very well with the Hanako legend. Because imagine this, right? You flip him, you get to change one of your opponent's gigs to the exact same amount as one of yours, and then you can spend Hanako to swap those gigs, and then you have a friendly value pair of gigs, which is generally good for Hanako because you draw off that, but also just broadly pretty good for green. And I think that is a pretty efficient combo, pretty dang good. I mean, practically meaning or being able to ensure that you have that lineup once per turn is pretty good. And let's say you're like, because obviously if you're in green, you don't really care about if your gigs are high or low, and you just kind of want them to be the same. He's pretty good at messing with your opponent's gig strategies. Like, let's say you're getting low rolls, and that's kind of the strategy that you choose to take on, right? So you want to start setting your gigs to lower to just mess with them. It is a pretty efficient way to do so. Or like in the opposite scenario, let's say you're going against blue, right? And you roll a gig and you roll high gig, right? Let's say you can just swap the blue player's gigs and just kind of mess with them that way. And it doesn't matter because you just want them to be the same, right? It is a pretty darn good legend, if I do say so myself. Very synergistic with green, but also can just work with other colors as well. Like, let's say if you are in red and you just splash in green with Padre, very nice way to overall boost the gig numbers that you'll be seeing on the dice throughout the game. I mean, I got nothing but praise for Padre. And maybe that is a little bit of bias because, I mean, parts of SoCal, it pretty much feels like I'm living with the Tinos already. But I don't think I'm wrong on this. I think this is going to be a pretty solid legend once the set gets fully released and we all get to start playing around with different combos and cards. The next legend, or the next card, rather, is another legend and another fixture at that, and we have Momar Reyes El Capitan. He is the yellow fixer legend, just like the other two. He cannot go solo, so it's just the one to flip. And then also like them, he has a call effect where you can only choose one of two options. The second one being drawing one, and then the first one, specific to Reyes, being that a friendly unit can't be defeated in a fight this turn. So pretty good if you play it on defense, or even if you're playing it on your turn, where let's say you have like a sketchy Ripper, for example, and just being able to do that and attack with it without any worry as well. Or also, let's just say you have like a big unit, your opponent has a big unit, right? And you can get it to equal power, but you can't get it over. Not being able, or not having to trade units and being able to keep yours is pretty good and allows you to come out on the better end of what would be a trade in most scenarios. So good offensively, good defensively, and then you can spend him to adjust a gig by 1. So it goes well with blue if you're kind of messing around with Jackie and you want to get a gig up. So the next time that you play a blue, blue unit or gear, then you can decrease that and make sure you get the draw trigger. Also just good if, like in typical yellow, you want stuff a little bit off. It is kind of small of a change to be making there, so really only going to be kind of useful in blue or yellow gig value strategies, because with red, there's just a bunch of better options for there. And then for green, I mean, what's the point of playing this over Padre, you know? But overall, pretty dang solid, as the fixers tend to be. And next up on the chopping block, we got Ruthless Lowlife, who starts out 1 out of 7 newly revealed cards with the starter decks this Friday. at least with this one being more like a rework version, but the other 6 are brand new. And this is still a red unit with a RAM requirement of 1 red RAM, so you're only going to need to be playing a red legend to put this in your deck. He also costs 2 to play and has 4 power. However, as a restriction for that very good baseline, this unit can only attack rival units. Personally, I still think this is a really good unit, especially at 2 costs. I mean, you're already just probably going to be attacking into rival units anyways, right? And then if you take a look at the other 2 cost units, it is mainly like the blockers in Bombus and Security, the pseudo tutors in Evelyn Parker and the Ripper, and then Jacked and Voodoo Boy and Japantown Jonin. Currently, this unit can also, out of 69 nice units that are out right now, can either trade or win a battle against 37 of them, which is no small number. I think this tends a little towards aggro strategies as well. It is a pretty good turn 1 play if you're going for more board dominance. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I think this is a pretty good card. Definitely in the combo for the best 2 cost unit, if you ask me. Just, yeah, generally pretty good. The next unit that we have of the bunch is Chrome Fang. This is also a red unit with a RAM requirement of 1 red RAM. This unit, however, costs 5 to play and has 6 power, so 2 under the base rate set by the vanilla Rockin' Rocker Boy. And on play, until your next turn, rival units can't steal friendly gigs with higher value than their power. Generally, I like this card too. It definitely is a pretty good gotcha for more like decks that care about going wide, especially blue decks who don't particularly seem to care about their unit's power and would more readily decrease your unit's power or just, I don't know, do typical program quick hack shenanigans. It is also pretty good at protecting red's investments. Like if you are putting a lot of resources into upping your D20 or like your D12 and your D8, and that is generally going to be on the harder side to steal for a lot of your opponent's units, which as a result keeps your street cred on the higher end because it hurts a lot less when you lose your D4 on a 2 than when you lose like your D20 on a 12. So that in general is pretty good. And then yeah, at only 2 under the vanilla rate, it is pretty solid. Kind of reminds me of Chrome Reverie, which is a blue program that where it is a Revel unit can't attack until your next turn. If you control a min gig, you may call a legend for free, obviously without that second bit. But I mean, it's kind of like a half Chrome Reverie, like a red version of it, but then it also affects the entire opposing board. And even if they play like an adrenaline unit, it's just until your next turn, rival units can't steal friendly gigs with higher value than their power. So that is pretty good, pretty solid card in my opinion. And then the next out of the bunch, we have Max Tack AV. This is finally a different color, a green unit card with 2 green RAM required to play it. So a green legend you're going to need to play. This unit also costs 5 and has the power of 8, which is equal to the high number set by Rock and Rocker Boy, which is the vanilla card. And pretty much the highest that it's going to get for 5 cost units, unless it has some kind of like downside, most likely. You can see 5 for 8. And it also has the play effect of you may swap a friendly gig with a rival gig. And personally, I think this is pretty good. It works for literally any color that you're playing. Green, it's pretty great if you're trying to get more like same sided gigs or like same value gigs, and your opponent has one. Works well with Padre as well in the same way it works well with Hanako. If you're playing red and you have like your little D4 and your opponent just rolled their D12, you can swap that. If you're in blue, you can do that vice versa. If you're in yellow, it helps you to differentiate your gigs and stuff like that. And then, I mean, 8 power is pretty dang chunky. So while it may be simple, it is definitely on the stronger side. And just overall, if you care about street cred or just gigs in any way, pretty useful if you're spec'ing a green, even just with a legend. I'd say this definitely puts itself in the conversation. The next card is a pretty big one, though, because finally we have gear removal back. That's right. Gone are the days when we had a Morin Dying Knight as the only source of gear removal. We now have Haywood Ripperdoc as the only source of gear removal. He is a yellow unit with a ram requirement of only one yellow ram. So as long as you're running a yellow legend, you can get some gear removal in your deck. He does cost 6 to play though, so earliest you're going to be able to get this off is turn 3. He does have 8 power though, so nothing to scoff at there. And then his play effect is you may defeat a gear. If its cost equals the value of a friendly gig, draw 1. Simple as long as gear is good, or there is a meta strategy around gear, or like the top decks run a fair amount of gear, this unit is going to have a place. Even if you don't get the draw off, just being able to like blow up a piece of gear that your opponent's abusing is really good. And yeah, I mean, the 8 power after you play him is also still really good. So in general, again, while he may be simple, just like the Max Sack AV, it is pretty solid, pretty good. And I mean, as the only card that currently fills a hole, it's got some use case, at least, at the very least. The next card, though, is not filling a specific gap, but it is instead accentuating a current strategy already that blue has in Tetratronic Rippler. This is a blue gear card that has a ram requirement of 2 blue ram, so only going to need to be playing a blue legend to put this in your deck. It only costs 1 to play, gives a buff of +1 power, and then when this unit or legend is spent, search the top card of your deck. You may trash it. Otherwise, keep it on the top card of your deck. And like the Max Deck AV before, I think this has a use case in every single color. Whether it's like wanting to fill trash for recursion purposes for what seems to be like the red strategy of recursion, whether it's just trying to get to more gear in yellow, whether it's just shaping the top card of your deck for green, and then especially in blue, this pretty much goes well with the Judy secret rare card. Because again, for one, you can spend her and then reveal the top card of your deck. You may play it for free. So you don't have to be hitting like the jacked in Voodoo Boy anymore, because as long as you have that equipped to a unit or legend, you can tell what that's going to be. It also works very well with the Sasha legend, where on attack you reveal the top card of your deck and add it to your hand. This unit gains power equal to that card's cost this turn. Also, really benefits off of you shaping that top card of your deck. Maybe instead of getting just Trust No One, which is a 1 cost program, maybe you get like, I don't know, Delamine Cab, which costs 4. Just anything better than that. And then, I mean, yeah, just in general, if you like just don't like the card that's on the top of your deck, or you're kind of in crunch mode and you don't need it whatsoever, Tetratronic Rippler is the piece of gear just for you. And yeah, I mean, pretty good. A lot of these cards are just solid ones that will, like, you'll have no complaints putting it in your deck and rounding it out. And this continues that trend. The other gear card we have today is one that you've already seen before in Arasaka Emergency Radio Port. This is a red gear card with 2 red ram required, so only need to be playing a red legend. This piece of gear costs 2 to play, gives your unit or legend a power buff of +2, and then when this unit or legend is spent, you may look at a friendly face down legend. If that legend is Arasaka or has go solo, you may call it for free. Currently, this out of the 27, really 26 because of Rebecca legends that are out there so far, this effects, let's see, 8, and then the 1, 2. So that is 6 from Go Solo. And then for Arasaka, we have 6 minus the 2. So that is 10 legends so far out of the 26 sided effects. Obviously, probably going to want to be running a deck that it's able to target at least 2 of your legends. And then once they're all flipped, doesn't really provide too much value out of it. It's almost like an evolved Kuroshi Optics in a way. And I mean, I kind of have the same feelings about it. It's fine, I guess. The +2 power is still good. It is very nice to save on in Eddie, but at the same time, it's only saving on in Eddie. And then by the time you've already flipped your stuff or your legends, which I mean, I guess this is better in one where you don't really care about them being flipped right away. Maybe if one of them's like Atom Smasher, Goro, and then I don't know, maybe like Uranobu, but you don't really care about that too much, then it's better. But I don't know. Again, like pretty much every card, it'll have its use case, but on its face, I would just consider this fine. The last card, though, out of the 7 revealed with the star decks, is probably the most interesting, I'd have to say. It is Shattered Memories, also a red card, this one being a program, and also notably a Brain Dance for anyone looking to play Judy. It has a red RAM requirement of 2, so you're only going to be playing a red legend to put this in your deck as well. Cost 4 to play, and then each player discards their hand and may draw 5. If the total number of discarded cards equals the value of a friendly gig, draw 2. Personally, I do like this card a lot on its face. It can be a nice way to mess up your opponent's plans. It can be a very good way to fill up your trash if you're going in recursion synergies, maybe specifically, I guess, with Uranobu Steel Dragon, or just like Screw, or I don't know, Meredith, or trying to fill it up for like yellow stuff, or just get Trauma Scene Operatives as cheap as possible. Pretty much got a use case in every single color if you're just trying to get the yard filled for stuff like that. And then it's also just straight up good if you have like 2 cards in your hand, or if none of the cards are useful in that situation that you're in right now, or like if you're digging for that one answer in your deck as well. And then possibly being able to draw 7 off of this is very nice. The extra 2 is a pretty nice added bonus. It's kind of hard to judge how good I'd say that this card is going to be, though, because we haven't seen anything like this until now. I think it is going to be useful, and it's going to have its place among a fair amount of decks with like all the cards that you saw there before that had something to do with the trash. And also one thing that I should note is that this is one of the cards that Kawa showed off, or I guess that were showed off with Kawa unboxing the starter decks in the official Cyberpunk TCG podcast over on their channel, where it is foily and shiny, and it does look pretty dang good. So if you want to see that, I would definitely recommend going and checking that out because it looks pretty cool, if you ask me. But let's run into the last card, which I'm pretty sure I could say more definitively is pretty good. It is Dexter Deshawn off the grid. He rounds out the Fixer Legends, being the red version, and like all the others, he cannot go solo. And he has a call where you can choose one effect out of 2 possible, and the second one being draw 1. However, Dex's first one is an exact foil to the Wakako ability, where you can give a friendly unit +2 power this turn with Dex. And then with Wakako, it was give a rival unit -2 power this turn. And then also, as another foil to Wakako, you can spin him to increase a gig by up to 2. Just like Wakako, I think it's pretty versatile. It's a nice combat trick, whether it's on your defensive or offensive step. The draw is there just in case that plus power isn't really doing much, or like if you need to draw or you'd rather prefer to draw. And then the steady and constant gig manipulation by increasing it up to 2 does add up over time, is pretty nice for your general red deck, and overall is a pretty solid legend once again. overall the fixture legends have been, and I'm pretty sure they will be, even after the game officially releases and we get to see their biggest weaknesses. But that is it for card reveals for today's episode. And first off, just thanks for watching this far in the first place. But now it is time to round things off with... There's one main piece of news outside of the world of Cyberpunk that I wanted to talk about a little bit here because I was excited by this, and it is that the trailer for Blue-Eyed Samurai Season 2 finally dropped, and it is set to release on January of next year. Personally, I had heard a lot of good stuff about the show, and I just figured might as well watch it, and it was pretty dang good, and I really liked it, and just seeing it slated for a season 2 release in a couple months is pretty exciting and cool for me personally. And then also it has been renewed for season 3, which will be the final season and is set to premiere in 2028, which is pretty exciting as well. I would recommend that you check the show out if you're just looking for like some show suggestions or ways to waste time, I guess. But yeah, it is pretty good. And this was just a little exciting tidbit of news I wanted to share. But as for general channel news, coming back to the gameplay video, it's done. I pretty much stayed up like all of Thursday night, and I just kind of hunkered down, got into my best little shrimp pose while editing, and yeah, I cranked it out, and it's done. I do have like a little bit of finishing touches and stuff like that to go on and whatnot, but it is pretty much just done. So that is pretty cool. I am going to hold off on this. It will be coming out this, I don't even know, like Tuesday or Wednesday, most likely, just because it was really close to the update. And then with all the like beta event stuff, I wanted to cover that in a video first with like whatever this last Friday's update was as well. And then, yeah, get this out where it has a little bit of breathing room as well, like midweek or so. But yeah, so just something cool to look forward to on the channel. And then another thing is I got a bunch of cards. Well, not a bunch of cards. Like I got a card from various trading card games. Let me count it actually. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards from different TCGs. One from Magic, one from Star Wars Unlimited, one from Riftbound Pokemon card, a One Piece card, a Lorcana card, a Gundam card, a Flesh and Blood card, and a Yu-Gi-Oh card. And I will also be adding a Cyberpunk card to that. And then just kind of testing how sturdy they all are, like how easily they bend. I got a fun little idea for that too. That'll be the next kind of fun video after the gameplay video. Probably. Honestly, I've also got like a deck idea for just like a main blue deck called Top Deck Terror from the Rippler that came out recently, and then Sasha and Judy. So I don't know. I might throw together like a deck tech video that could come out after this. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's not set in stone, but yeah, that's just a little bit of behind the scenes insight, just down the railroad type stuff to look forward to. And yeah, that is it for today. So if you have watched this far, thank you a lot for doing so, first off. And I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. And hopefully I will see you guys back next time for the gameplay video. Until then, peace out, Shooms. Ciao.